This is Basket Case Clubs, CPR Group's podcast where we turn basket case clubs into showcase clubs. Hello everyone and welcome back to Basket Case Clubs. My name is Michael Connolly and it is my pleasure to be your host on this journey today, and joining me as usual is my brother and younger partner. Oh, I shouldn't have said younger, I gave it away. Partner in Basket Casey goodness, Steve Connolly. G'day Steve.
Hello, it's my pleasure to be here. It's my pleasure to be had.
I'm terrific, thank you. Thanks for asking.
Hey, this is great. We should just do away with the niceties all the time and just answer the question that wasn't asked.
Blue. But if we're talking cars, then obviously red. Oh, sorry. Yeah, wasn't there a Holy Grail bit about that? What's your favourite colour? Blue. I mean green. Ah! It's not a horse, it's just a man with two coconuts. Oh, shit. Now we're talking. It's time to get back into our discussion about strategic planning. And Steve, you don't know about this, but today I'd actually like to take you on a bit of a journey back through some of the things that we've discussed, because I've got some new information.
Yes, and I've still got bated breath, so I shall continue waiting.
Stink. Okay, so we'll get back into the how to do a strategic plan discussion, but I wanted to bring you up to speed with some stuff that I found out only recently, and it is recent, so this is stuff that happened in 2022, and what are we, the 20-something of April 23rd of April 2023, which means that in 10 years, this will be a palindromic date. 23432, won't it?
Yeah.
Right? It's probably a long shot, because if you say anyway, back to the story. So I want to take you back to the big why. Remember our discussion about the big why? Mm-hmm. But I also want to join that in with the episode that we did about value statements. And remember, we were hanging shit on value statements, like when you say respect and integrity and transparency and honesty. Because seriously, if you've got to write those things down, I stand by this, if you've got to write integrity and honesty and respect down as a word, and that's your value and that's all there is to it, how the hell do you live that? And by the way, if you haven't been living with integrity or transparency or honesty or respect up until this point, what the hell you been doing? Like, seriously.
Yep.
So it's just so common to write crappy words on a wall and well, there's our values. Live them. Live the bloody things.
I have interestingly had a couple of discussions with clubs since the discussion that we had about values, and have, you'll be happy to know, continued to hang shit on some of those types of value statements. And in particular, one company that you rattled off some completely absurd sounding values from, and I understand that you've got a story to tell me about that particular company, and what our listeners don't know is that you've been holding off telling me this story until we're live.
Exactly. And because we're in the same room, I actually want to watch your face, because it's an interesting story. Now, I'm going to have to be careful through parts of the story, and you'll see why when we get there. But let me bring you up to speed. If we go back in our time machine, and I understand that Jess has some time machine-y noises, so I'll just go, and then Jess will make this noise. And now we're back in time talking about Ben & Jerry's ice creams value statements. Now, what is interesting about this is that nowhere in here does it say that these guys make kick-ass ice cream. We strive to minimise our negative impact on the environment. We strive to show a deep respect for human beings inside and outside our company and for the communities in which they live.
Do you think that anyone from within Ben & Jerry's was involved in the construction of these value statements, or do you think it was entirely prepared by external people?
Nah,
Read marketing consultants.
Now what I know, it was definitely done by the company and done by Ben and Jerry, probably themselves. So they started the company in, I think, 78-ish.
Okay.
So they kind of look like aging, some middle-aged / aging ice cream eaters.
I was going to say, yeah, but they look like they eat too much ice cream.
Hang on. This is Ben & Jerry's. There is no such thing as too much Ben & Jerry's. If you can still eat, you can still eat Ben & Jerry's. It is really good stuff. We seek to support non-violent ways to achieve peace and justice. We believe government resources are more productively used in meeting human needs and in building and maintaining weapons systems. We strive to create economic opportunities.
Why did they talk about freaking weapon systems?
See, ladies and gentlemen, this is why I wanted to be in the room with Steve as we went back through this. We strive to create economic opportunities for those who have been denied them and to advance new models of economic justice that are sustainable and replicable. We support sustainable and safe methods of food production that reduce environmental degradation, maintain the productivity of the land over time, and support the economic viability of family farms and rural communities.
I want to know how they find the time to make ice cream.
Well, okay, so
They're doing all these other wonderful things.
so this is okay, but if they actually we hung shit on those, and rightly so, because I still believe that
Stand by my shit hangery.
somewhere in there it should talk about making kick-ass ice cream if that is their core business. So if we're doing this stuff through making kick-ass ice cream,
Hey, wait, did they start doing something other than making ice cream? Is that what this is uncovering? Oh
no,
God,
it's still ice cream, but it's how they make the ice cream and what goes into it. Okay, so what you
no
don't-
weapon systems
They do
were
not
harmed during the
make-
construction of this tub of ice cream.
Oh, the salted caramel something or other and the choc chip cookie dough. The choc chip cookie dough is my favourite, but there's a choc fudge brownie one that's got, like the cookie dough, it's got literally chopped up bits of fudge brownie.
Is that the
through it.
one with the late night guy on the tub? Is the fudge brownie one?
The late night guy on the I'm just going to leave that one there, and I'm going to go and... You know where I'm going. We're going out this afternoon to
Get ice cream.
game of netball. I'm definitely going to stop and get a pint tub of Ben & Jerry's ice cream. Okay, so what you don't know is that Ben & Jerry's was sold in 2000 to the company Unilever. So Unilever makes hand soaps and dishwashing liquid and washing liquid and stuff. So it is a very acquisitive company. It's a UK-based company, but they're all over the world. So they own brands all over the world. And in 2000, they paid the board of Ben & Jerry's, upon which I believe Ben and Jerry both still sit, $326 million.
Holy Doritos.
Holy Doritos. Holy Beepos. So knowing how good Ben & Jerry's ice cream is, I kind of understand why you'd pay so much for it. But what's fascinating is in the sale of Ben & Jerry's, the brand, the board of Ben & Jerry's wrote into the sales contract that they continued after the sale to control these value statements.
That was a condition of the sale.
It was a condition of the sale that they still be in control. So the
board,
as Ben & Jerry's. So separate from Unilever, and then they've got other brands around the world, in different regions around the world, that actually have the license to sell the stuff.
Okay.
So this is fascinating stuff, because I didn't realise that...
Why would you want to...
I didn't realise...
They really love these values.
Well, it's more than the values, and this is where it comes back to the why. So when you take... those are value statements that talk about specific little parts of what it is that they do, some of which will make more sense as I go through it. But what is fascinating is that they are so in touch with their big why, which is demonstrated and delivered through those values. And the big why is, we want to make kick-ass ice cream, but because we're a company that is doing such a good job, we have the ability to do that and meeting these values. So it means, like the one about family farms, it means that they can pay the dairy farmers, for instance, more money. So here in Australia, we've got Coles and Woolies that have pretty much a monopoly, have had a large monopoly over milk for a long time. And when they pretty much guaranteed you could buy 2 litres of milk for $2 for many years, it wasn't Coles and Woolies who were footing the bill there. They were forcing that onto the farmers, saying, well, we're going to do this, and if you don't do it, other farmers will, so you'll just go out of business. Which is then what made companies like Mullaney Dairies, for instance, more boutique and bespoke. And I'm happy to pay a bit, because it's kick-ass milk, especially the gold top stuff and your coffee. I'm happy to pay a bit more for that, and so I don't buy that's an economic decision that I've made personally, and I realise everyone's welcome to make their own decisions. But I was very, very thankful that at the point where I couldn't buy 2 litres of milk for $2 anymore. I was happy when the price went up, because finally these poor farmers who get up way earlier than I do and literally get pissed on by cows that they're milking don't get anything for what they're doing.
And we've got an example that's even closer to home. We've got family up in far north Queensland who farm bananas, and for a period of time when the same sort of thing was happening with bananas, it was costing them more money to sell the bananas than it would to take them off the tree and bury them, because of all of the process to get it from the tree into the
Supermarket.
one of the two big supermarkets, and for the little amount that they were being paid for them by those supermarkets, which is just heartbreaking.
Yeah, and I think that sucks.
That sucks.
Yeah, but
it's unsustainable. If it's not win-win,
Yep.
It's not going to be a sustainable deal.
So you've got to have the business model behind that. So I was talking to Jess about this through the week because I was fascinated by it, and she was sitting behind me in the office. I'm going, Jess, you're not going to believe what I found out, and now I'm going to have to go and redo that whole story. So, but it's still interesting that it doesn't say ice cream, and I'm going to stand by that, but only because I got to save some face in this discussion. But
hey, we're consciously coming back and addressing this situation or topic again, so surely that's got to give us
some kudos.
Yeah, some good faith points.
Yeah,
we're happy to throw ourselves under the bus.
So she made the comment that Ben and Jerry's is very expensive ice cream, and I kind of disagreed because it costs it costs more money to buy a little tub of Ben and Jerry's than it does to buy a big tub of home brand stuff from the freezer section, because there's a separate freezer in our little supermarket down here for
a Ben and Jerry's freezer.
Yeah. And it's okay, so it's like $11 for a quarter of a litre or something, but it's a really nice quarter of a litre. You know you're going to enjoy every spoon or / fight over every spoonful in the tub. And it's because it's really good, they can charge that. So that's the value proposition. They're making enough money. Steve's looking up Ben and Jerry's. I was wondering why you were drooling into the microphone there, Steve. That's one of my good shawls. Please don't ruin it with your dribble.
Non-dairy options. Netflix original flavours. Netflix and chilled. That's great.
That's awesome. I haven't heard of that one. Oh, I wonder what it tastes like.
Let's find out. This is a great advertisement for Bennett. We're kind of going back on ourselves in that we're really promoting the goodness of their ice cream, aren't we? Although, I don't think we ever questioned that.
Stop looking at the ice. Stop looking.
All right, I'm putting my phone down.
And I said it's about the value. So if you want a tub of, and I've had other cookie dough ice cream, and it is crap.
Mm-hmm.
So in a ice creamery, but when you get the Ben and Jerry's cookie dough ice cream, it is exactly as it should taste, and everything else isn't right. So if I've got to pay an extra $1 for that in the grand scheme of things, I'm happy to do that because it's so good. And
per spoonful, extra $1 per spoonful.
No, not quite. But if you think about it, when the company is able to charge whatever it is per the tubs and people are buying it, it means that it's the sort of company that has enough money coming in from what they do to be able to go and deliver stuff, like spending more money buying the stuff from family farms than they could if they just did it en masse.
Okay, to actually
and screwed farmers over like everyone else.
To make a genuine difference.
Make a genuine difference. And then they can do the same with the other things as well. So one of the other things that they do, now remember I mentioned the choc fudge brownie.
Mm-hmm.
The bakery in Boston, New York, somewhere that I forget exactly where it is, that makes the actual brownies that then get smushed up and put into the ice cream, employs the unemployable. So people who would otherwise not be able to get a job can get a job at this bakery. So it's people who have served their rehabilitation period in jail. Mm-hmm. People who are recovering from drug addiction or alcohol addiction. I'm imagining that it would also be other people who can't get a job. So maybe people who are older than the average people who get employed to sell ice cream or make ice cream. And that's the bakery that is a subsidiary part of the whole, shall I say, food chain of the ice cream manufacturer. But Ben & Jerry's does exactly the same thing. I think it was 2015 that they were quite publicly talking about how they're doing the same thing.
Wow.
So when you think about it...
So hold on, does my choc fudge brownie ice cream here in Australia contain brownies from that
I don't know.
It's
an interesting question. So whether like Asahi Beverages actually make their drinks here under license, and the Guinness that I drink here is not from Ireland. It's made in one of our breweries, but under strict licensing conditions. So I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
But regardless, we're Australia, and statistically nobody lives here compared to the other markets in the world. So
we don't really matter.
There's I don't know, but But then something interesting for us to look into then, is the same thing happening here? If it is a local supply chain, is the same thing happening here? A company that is competing only on price, and even a bigger company that is then riddled with bureaucracy is not going to be able to have the flexibility to be able to create a program where they can do something that other people can't do, other companies can't do, in supporting the local farmers, in making sure that they only sell into markets that are fair and reasonable in their opinion, making sure that they're giving people who otherwise wouldn't have an opportunity. Like, that's freaking cool.
Wow.
Now,
that is.
How does that relate to sport? We're talking about basket case clubs, not basket case cream. There you go. I did it now. Maybe it's because I'm still worried about episode 1. We're going back to classing clubsing. Let's take this back to clubs now. How can a club do the same thing? A sports club, remember when we talked marketing and I said that your pricing is a big part of your branding. Your pricing says a lot about what you think about yourself and how confident you are in the value proposition that you bring to your customers. Yes, customers. I didn't call them members. I called them customers because that's who they are. If you're confident in what you're doing and your pricing strategy reflects that, then you can do shit that others can't. And it just so bugs both of us, and I know I will speak for you here because you say it all the time, when people say, we need to keep downward pressure on fees. Seriously? Why? When your costs are going up, why are you trying to wear all the cost?
No one's keeping downward pressure on the cost of you doing business, guys.
Yeah, nobody's keeping downward pressure on your insurance costs. Yep. No one's keeping downward pressure on the cost of milk that goes into the milkshakes you might serve from your canteen. Nobody's putting downward pressure on the chips that you got to buy to put in the chip fryer, or the ingredients to make your lovely middle of winter lasagna or minestrone soups. So why is it that you think that it's okay to just put plenty of volunteer time into making up the costs? When, on the other hand, if you valued everything that you did, and the self-limiting factor of not-for-profitness means that any money that you make is always then going to be reinvested back into what you do, then... and there's only so much you can pay for better fields when your fields are pristine, better clubhouse when your clubhouse is pristine, better change rooms when your change rooms are brand new or recently renewed, when better people when your staff is all happy and you've got a wonderful workplace culture that manages the link between volunteers and staff. So then what do? That's when you go and become properly acquisitive. But I'm talking about being genuinely altruistically acquisitive here. So we can go and acquire other programs that mean that people who wouldn't otherwise be able to participate in sport can participate in sport, like a scholarship program. We talk about this quite a lot. A lot of people's eyes glaze over. But if we had enough money, enough profit, that we're building up the bottom line and we can't distribute that profit back out to members, even though it's the members who put the money in, then what can we do? There is so much opportunity for you to then go and do those sorts of meaningful things like Ben & Jerry's are doing, but with an allegory over in sport, in our realm. And for those of you listening live who can't see Steve's face, I can see him pondering the opportunities and going, wow, there is actually shit that they could do.
Yeah. That's my little brain that you can hear ticking over there.
Yep. All right, so let's bring this little discussion home, because there's actually more to this story, and it's this part of the story that I found out about that I found so interesting. So I'm not going to go through the specific details because it's actually quite complicated, but something happened last year, and I think it might have gone into 2021, but it was certainly through 2022. The board of Ben & Jerry's, having retained the rights to their Big Y, and as we've just read them, and the way that it was summarised in one of the articles from either the Financial Times or The Guardian or something, the company's core values of advancing human rights and dignity, supporting social and economic justice for historically marginalised communities are integral to Ben & Jerry's identity. The lawsuit filed in New York had said, this is how it had explained, summarised the values that we went through earlier. But the board then warned that without the court's intervention, the independence of Ben & Jerry's board of directors will be lost and the company's brand integrity forever tarnished. And what they meant by that was that we no longer have the ability to control our values, to have influence over our Big Y, which was contractually granted to us during the $326 million sale back in 2000.
So hold on. So sometime between 2000 and, what did you say, last
22.
year, there had been some event or someone had...
Yeah, so let's get into what that was, because this is where it gets interesting. So I'm not really familiar with the underlying reason for the fights that go on between Israel and Palestine in the West Bank. I don't really know because, and we don't have a large Jewish population in Australia, so I don't have a lot of people that I can go and say, hey, can we sit down for half an hour and can you explain this to me? They'd probably say, half an hour ain't long enough, buddy.
Yep.
So what was fascinating was that Unilever didn't want to. Unilever was going to sell the rights to the company that was doing the distribution was going to actually buy the Ben & Jerry's brand for that part of the world, because doing business in Israel in those contested areas is difficult right across the board. Because do you come down on the side of Israel or do you come down on the side of the Palestinians? How do you do it? And then are you then being seen to support one side or the other? So what's interesting is that both Ben and Jerry are, I think, what they call themselves, very proud Jewish people. So they had a problem, as I understand, they had a problem with the sale of their ice cream into the West Bank. And so they didn't want it to happen. And Unilever wanted it to happen, and so they said, "Well, we're just going to sell it to the local guy because then it's his problem, the local distributor, which is actually the local distributor is then actually a part of an American company. So when it gets to food, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and these massive companies, massive global companies, have distribution rights or licenses all over the world. So complicated stuff." So that's probably enough of a flyby because I really don't want to get too deep into the stuff that I don't know about. But I just thought, isn't this fascinating that now they're taking to court 22 years after the sale, they're taking the buyer to court for not delivering on the values in the way that they interpret the values as well. So
they have that authority to interpret.
They have look. It's settled.
Okay.
And the details of the settlement aren't public. I certainly couldn't find them. So I don't know what the settlement looked like, but I'm just interested in how fascinating it is that a company, even after pocketing $326 million, is still so wedded to the why of their brand that they will fight this hard and this publicly to maintain what they see as the integrity of their brand.
That's living and breathing your values.
Yeah. So I just think that so the point here is that although we spent time hanging shit on the values, here's a company that's so in touch with its why that they kept the right to enforce it when they sold, and they are still applying it. And what that means is that when you go through a strategic planning process, to bring this back to our little mini series on planning, when you go through a strategic planning process, the time that it takes, the time that you need to invest in coming up with putting words around why it is that you exist and where your values lie and tying that into the values actually becomes so incredibly meaningful and not just words on a page at the end of your or beginning of your planning session. You know how many old school planning sessions get hung up on, is it promote and foster and promote, sessions where we're not.
Yeah, this is thank you for sharing this with me and our listeners, and thank you for not telling me until we were recording. But this has been really eye-opening, and I certainly more deeply understand the Ben & Jerry's values now. And I think that for what it's worth, it appears less that they're just words on a page now, that we know this extra information. And even though, yes, I agree, we need to stand by our criticism of them not talking about making great ice cream, the rest of the stuff on there is
actually makes sense because they live it every single day even after selling the company.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yep. And they're not fighting because they want more money. They're fighting because they genuinely believe in something, and it obviously, we talk about hills that you're willing to die on.
Yep.
For these guys, this is that important to them.
Good on them.
So despite how you feel or how we feel about the fight itself and the nature of the fight and who's right and who's wrong in this case, I just thought that was a fascinating story. And I was just, when I learned about it only on Friday, I just went, because today's Sunday, I just went, wow, this is amazing. So I think, because I think this is the only podcast that we've ever recorded on a Sunday, I was that keen to talk about it and also talk about it while it was fresh, because I'm fascinated by the whole story, but then to be able to bring it back and say, look how things tie together. We've talked about the values and look, just because of this story, I think even I understand to connect your why with your values, because the values are how you live it every single day. If you get them right and you keep pointing towards them, and you make investment decisions based on it, and you make hiring decisions based on them, and you make acquisition decisions based on them, like, do we have a satellite venue? Do we go into a merger with another club or association? It makes it easy to live your why when you've got value statements that are there, that are visible, and you can see them and you know that you can live them.
Yep.
Steve, thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing.
Today. I had a little bit of fun preparing for this one.
So did I.
I hope our listeners enjoyed as well. So, of course, if you enjoyed this episode, you can let us know at cprgroup.com.au, and there's a little contact button there. You can also share with us any ideas you've got for future episodes of Basket Case Clubs. If you're not already following us on social media, make sure you do so. You'll get us at CPR Group Oz, and make sure you sign up for our newsletter if you haven't done so already. Steve, I think there might be 1,000 more episodes in this mini funny quote years.
Becoming less mini of
on strategic planning. But and how it ties back to the pricing stuff as well. So nothing is independent. The Venn diagram is lots and lots of overlapping circles of governance. I reckon there's a picture in that. I still like our Basket Case logo as it is. Steve, thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you. See ya.
Basket Case Clubs acknowledges the traditional custodians of the country on which we record, being Yugambeh, Turrbal, Jagera and Kabi Kabi land. We recognise their enduring connection to land, waters and culture, and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to First Nations listeners.